welcome to another episode of Don't Shit on the Bus. This week, we're doing something a little bit different, and I don't know, it's because of a few different things. The first and foremost being I talked to my good friend Craig, and Craig, avid listener, helper, and he basically guides me on the podcast, was saying, you know, from a listener standpoint, somebody just knows me from the podcast. They don't know anything about me, and I'm okay with that. But he said, you know, it might be good to teach people a little bit about what I've done, where I come from. And my main concern was that I would come off a little bit conceited. And I don't want you guys to think that I'm like, hey, let's make a podcast episode about myself on my own podcast. That is not the goal. That is what we're doing. But I didn't wake up one day and I was like, I need to speak about myself. So I figured we'd find a good way to do it that makes sense. And that is have Connor interview me. What's up, Connor?
What's up, dude? We're doing this.
We are doing it. I'm mostly nervous, not about the podcast today, but about you.
Wow. Loose cannon interviewee. We're going to ask all the deep cut questions that the audience is.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm excited for you. I'm excited to have you on here and, you know, get interviewed by you because, you know, maybe we could tell people a little bit more about how you found your way to this podcast and how we met, because I think that's a pretty important lesson and why it makes sense to kind of, maybe not lesson, just an important path. It makes sense to have you on here doing this right now for your progression as a person as well.
Yeah, definitely, dude. I kind of wonder how I got here as well sometimes, but...
You know how you got here.
Well, I don't know what your reasoning was. I know why I'm here, but I didn't know why you decided.
All right, why are you here? Let's hear it from your mouth.
I started working with you after your first Raw challenge with Maddie Vogel, and I was just plugging away in the chat. And then the next, what was it, second or third episode, you had hit me up in Twitter asking if I wanted to help you guys out with that, moderating, eventually asking people if they want to be on, organizing those files, and kind of went to the point where we became the podcast after that.
Yeah, that was our progression.
Yeah.
And what do you think, why do you think, why you?
I think if I had to take a guess, just positive vibes. You know, I'm always willing to learn. I think that's probably what helps me in this instance because, dude, you look back at the old episodes and they're rough, and you just had to keep learning, and you know, I wasn't afraid of that. So I think that definitely helped me get up on the podcast.
I mean, for me, what really stuck out was that your just openness to learn and your lack of, you know, you came to everything with a very open mind. Like, hey, I'm here to learn. And you didn't really know that much, to be honest, which is fine because it's kind of a testament to our concept here. Is like you don't really have to know that much. You just have to know how to not shit on the bus. And you did a really good job of that. I will admit we have had our hiccups here and there. Oh, yeah. And our long nights and our learning experiences. You know, there's definitely things that happen along the way, but I'm happy we've got to where we're at, and now we can have you on camera talking.
Yeah, definitely, dude. You haven't fired me yet, so almost a year in, we're still doing it.
Oh my God. I would never fire you.
Not yet.
I'm nervous you're going to move to LA and become too cool for me. Well, you've moved to LA, but I'm nervous you're just going to come too cool for me.
Nah, dude. We live down the street from one another. Gotta keep seeing each other.
Yeah, theoretically. Nah, we will. Okay. Well, cool. Well, I mean, so the idea of this episode today is, for what it's worth, is I'm a music photographer. I got into this industry or my own path. And Connor is somebody who, correct me if I'm wrong, but has followed my path for a significant amount of time. I don't know.
Yeah, you're the reason why I got into this. Like I saw your old blog posts and Tumblr posts, and that's when I saw like, oh, you can do that for a career? What am I doing?
Okay, so kind of full circle then.
Absolutely.
That's cool. I mean, I think I knew that, but I kind of take it and then go. I don't know. I can't remember all those things. But before we get in, Connor, we do have to say thank you to our new patron.
Absolutely.
Their name is Mars, and I think I know you, Mars. I think you're from New Zealand, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we've toured together before. So I appreciate your support. And I also just want to say this week's episode, we will not be charging you for. We do not have a guest on here. Connor is still going to get to work. He's still going to get paid, but we're going out of pocket on this bad boy as a gift and a thank you to our patrons for all their support. You know, they do pay, you know, a couple bucks every episode, and it really does help. As we're looking to start doing real life interviews here in the next few weeks, it kind of, you know, we're going to have to upgrade our gear, and it's not free. So it really helps, you know, just that little bit of money every week really helps us.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for being on the bus.
Yes. Thank you for being on the bus.
Hello, Adam.
I am on the bus. Thank you. Hi, Connor. How's it going?
Not too bad, man. Thanks for being on this side of the bus. I'm the driver this time, and you're the passenger.
Is this in the show notes?
Yes.
I believe you.
Yeah, man. But just want to say it's like full circle that I'm interviewing you because you're the reason I'm here. And I think a lot of people look up to you because of your photography. I would say you could be credited for making live photography what it is today, at least in the social media world.
Well, that's a big thing to credit me for, so I appreciate it. And I don't know how much truth there is to that, but I believe that the way I was going to say this sounds terrible, but I was trying to say in your world, I think that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But when somebody says that, it kind of has a negative connotation, like, well, in your world. But I mean it like, well, I get it. Like if somebody's going into this, then and they followed me for a while, then it would make sense that in their world, that kind of looks like that. So if there's a positive way that I could say that and get the same point across, that's what I wanted to say.
I think you did pretty well right there.
All right, thanks.
Well, I think what helped is that you had the blog and the Tumblr posts that gave the information out, which wasn't really readily available. And that's what helped me at the start, getting photo passes, you kind of showing like behind the scenes stage stuff with the crew. And it's like, oh, this is what actually happens. I thought you just went up there and the band plays, and that worked out perfectly like that. So I just want to say, before we get more into this, thank you.
Thank you, man.
Going into that, I just wanted to know a little bit more about how you got started in the music world. I know that you weren't really good in school, but you love photography. It was the one thing you're really good at. Was that like a natural transition to get into music? Were you always into music? I know some people aren't.
I mean, yeah, I was not very good at school's scheduled activities. I did enjoy school and my friends. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't very good at school, and photography was the first thing, not only that I was kind of good at, but that I actually enjoyed other than video games, So I was like, hey, this is something I can do. And I wasn't very good at the start. Like I have proof, but I was similar to you, working on the podcast, I was determined and I really enjoyed it, and enjoying it was key because I was able to get better through the process was enjoyable. That was a pretty wild feeling to have something like that. And I'm sure everybody can relate to the first time they found something, or maybe they haven't found that thing yet, but the first time they found something that's like, wow, I could just do this forever.
Absolutely. What was your game of choice when you were in high school?
I played StarCraft 2, Warcraft 3, Diablo 2, and then some PlayStation games with my friends.
I can hear all the clicking happening in the background right now, just constant clicking.
Oh yeah, I had some great APM.
Well, that's awesome because I feel like a lot of people, high school is such a transitional period where you're not really sure what you're doing. And the fact that you found, something that kind of stuck until I would say now still is pretty crazy. And yeah, were you always trying to shoot music, or did you start off shooting like skateboarding with your friends or, flowers? Was music the thing that got you interested into photography?
Well, I was just shooting things that happened in my life. And I remember when I first started, like everywhere I go, I'd be like, wow, that looks like a photograph. That looks like a photograph. And I would go for walks and I would shoot models on Model Mayhem. So I would just shoot whatever I was doing. And then music happened because I was going to the concerts and it was more of a tool to get me in for free. And then you got to be really close to the artist. And I was like, this is sick. I've never been this close to all these people I look up for. And I was on the street team for a record label, so it kind of worked together. But it was more just like, I'm close. I can't play any instruments. It was impressive to my friends. It made me feel cool. It was just a combination of things where I was like, I want to do this. Probably not the right reasons, but, I did it.
It's always fun to be the cool kid in your friend group when you're in high school, especially. And getting into shows, I mean, that's like the highest degree of like, damn, I'm shooting shows and for free. This is sick. Do you remember what your first show was then?
My first local show was a band called I Voted for Kodos, which is a quote from The Simpsons. So they were a ska band. They're pretty good. I think they still have their music on Spotify. But my first real show was Linkin Park, Korn, and The Used, I think, or Less Than Jake, something like that. It was in Madison, Wisconsin, though. I remember going to that show. It was crazy.
Dang, I'm jealous of your first show experience then.
What was it?
Mine was Jason Mraz.
Nice, Jason Mraz.
Jason Mraz and Panic at the Disco.
That's pretty good.
So you're shooting these local shows. How long did it take you to finally get on the road yourself? Was it a few years? Was it pretty quick because you knew some artists? How was that like?
Yeah, it was a few years. I mean, it's crazy because a few years now my progression or relative progression in my career could feel a lot less steep. Like a few years could go by now and I could be like, yeah, I did a few shoots or I did a few live shows. And back then, a few years happened and it's like when you're starting, you go from being in high school to meeting a band to going on tour with a band to doing all these crazy things. But yeah, I would say I started shooting when I was 15 and I toured my first tour when I was 17 and then 18. And then I toured since, I toured mostly until I was like 28, 29.
You finished high school then, and then you just went right into touring afterwards? No college or anything like that?
So yeah, I mean, I went on a tour right after high school was over in the summer with Four Letter Lie. They were nice enough to take me out. I believe that's what happened. I get my dates a little bit confused. And then I did go to college for 6 months or like, not 6 months, whatever the length of a semester is. So half of a year. But I did like the Madison area technical college. I had some grants and things like that. And granted, I'm not the smartest person when it comes to book smarts. I'm a little bit better when it just comes to like, solving problems, puzzles. I love puzzles. But I remember going to this tech school, and tech schools are great. I think it meant, tech school. I think that's what it's called. They serve a purpose. They really help people along on the college path. But while I was there, I found myself not being one of the best students in class, which I knew if I was one of the best students in class, that everybody else was doing pretty not great at their current situation, which is fine. I'm not trying to like hate on the people there. It's just for me, myself, I knew that I didn't perform at that high of a level. So if I was doing well, that meant that this probably wasn't the place for me. And I didn't, I was actually trying to get into the photography program, and I had to go on a wait list and then take these general classes. So I took English and math and all these things. And then 3 years later, I got accepted. But that time I had already moved to California and been touring. So it's kind of full circle for me, but I ended up befriending one of the teachers there because my mom actually went to college at the same place while I was going. We both went to school at the same time. She went back, and I met one of her photography teachers, and he ended up having me come in and talk to the class when I was in my early 20s. And that was kind of fun. Like, I got to go to the school and be a teacher, which I think I probably did a terrible job at back then. But thank you for having me. I think I just came in the classroom and was like, here's my portfolio. I don't know what else to do. And then just talked about stuff.
Dang, you would have been the cool professor. It's like, we're not here to learn, man. We're just here to look at some pictures.
Learning to teach was a long process for me. So that was the beginning of it.
Dude, teaching is so hard and like such an underrated skill.
Yeah, it's hard. I think it's hard. I mean, if you don't have public speaking and you're not very outgoing and things like that, it's hard. And I am not those things, at least not naturally.
Dang, that's sick. Now I have to ask though, did you ever shit on the bus in those first few years?
I have never gone to the bathroom on the bus in a way that I shouldn't have. I have always used proper everything. I have witnessed people do said thing because it's usually a guest and they're really embarrassed. And, but other than that, I've seen people have to like fish it out. That's really gross.
Dang.
But yeah.
No hot bags or anything?
We didn't even have a bus, man. We were in vans. We were in vans for a while.
Well, that's a good point to talk on then too, is like, how long did it take you from going like, van tour to like, like a sprinter to like an actual bus tour? Was that a pretty quick shift for you, or did it take a few years to get to that point?
Well, back in 10 years ago, sprinters and bandwagons and other forms of transportation weren't as prominent. It was usually just a van or a bus. They didn't create the in-between until maybe like 5 or 6, maybe 7 years ago. And so I started in a van. I did Four Letter Lie in a van, a band called Before Their Eyes, a band called Settings, Just Surrender. And then my first bus tour was with, I think it was All Time Low, was like my first big bus tour. Or maybe it was Silverstein. I think when we had Shane on here, I think it was Silverstein. They let me ride on their bus and kind of teach me the ways. It was like a period of maybe a year or so that I started touring. And then, the size of band that tours in a bus can be like relatively small. It can be a couple thousand tops at a venue. Okay. So it's not super unattainable. And people go on a bus pretty quickly.
That's cool. Then you're doing that for a few years, and then eventually you're, going across the world with like ADTR on planes and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. How was that transition then? Because that would be pretty wild going from, just going across, the Midwest and like the middle of the country to like, oh, I'm in Europe now. I'm in Amsterdam.
I was definitely living pretty recklessly. I mean, dude, it was like, I used to travel. When I started traveling, I would travel for photo shoots, not for live photos, because it didn't exist as much. Like I would literally go on tour and I would take pictures and we would do nothing with them. The only pictures we would do things with would be the live photo shoots, because all we had was MySpace and people weren't posting daily updates. Four Letter Lie eventually did it, one of the first bands I worked with, but they were the only people who ever did that. So when I would travel, I would actually travel with a giant Pelican case and a travel size golf club case, which are really heavy. and then a battery pack on my shoulder and a backpack. And I have pictures where I'm like sleeveless, dragging those things around. And it was just like a disaster. Like I was just going, I was going from tour to tour. So I was jumping from artist to artist and then staying in random cities and going to the next one. I was just constantly on the road grinding away. So there wasn't really much time for me to kind of sit down and reflect and be like, what the hell am I doing? I just traveled, bought new clothes. I would just buy t-shirts and throw them away. I would wear shorts every day, wear the same hoodie every day. Like I basically had none of my own belongings, just my photography gear and my laptop. And we jumped from tour to tour. Now, when I finally got going with the Day to Remember in Europe, that was actually our first tour. I think it was 2010, where we started using the photos day of. We didn't even know I was out there. Like I bought my own ticket. They paid me a negligible amount of money, if that. And I just wanted to go on tour in Europe. Like to me, it's like free vacation, right? I'm like 20 years old. So I went out and I remember Alex came up to me, one of the art members, and was like, hey, can I have these photos every night? And he would kind of pop his head in my bunk. I'd be like, every night? Like I'm thinking I'm going to take these photos every day, go home, edit them, and then make a huge blog post. And that's what we're going to use them for. And I did do that. But Alex was the first person to start asking for them on a daily basis with no purpose other than to send them to his family. But as the career kind of progressed and Instagram came along, it became more of a viable kind of career path because people all of a sudden had this need for content. It wasn't needed before. At least people didn't know it was needed. And you had some artists who were doing it, like Linkin Park. They've been putting out videos and exclusive photos since the early 2000s. Like they had they were well far ahead of the times. And I'm sure there's other artists I don't know about that were doing it as well. But for the most part in our world, there just wasn't that many people doing anything with content yet.
So you're just going nonstop, just following that momentum of like, okay, I just finished with this tour. Who can I get on next? And just keeping that going then.
Yeah, I mean, back then there wasn't anybody else doing it. There was a few people, right? Like Paramore had Ryan Russell. Tim Harmon would do a bunch of the stuff for AP Magazine. And Joey Lawrence was doing a few shoots for people here and there. But nobody was really touring other than Ryan Russell. And there's a few artists that would tour with like bigger bands. But a lot of the smaller bands just wouldn't have photographers on with them. And I get it. You know, they didn't have room or they couldn't pay them. Yeah, I kind of figured it out by like paying myself by doing all these photo shoots along the way. So I'd go out with an artist, do photo shoots, make money from that, and then shoot the other rest of the photos for fun. And I don't even remember your question. I hope I didn't just go on a random tangent.
No, you're fine. I think that's a great roundabout. You essentially made it work. You're like, I want to be on the road and I'll find a way to do it. And you did that with your photo shoots. I
mean, yeah, when you're as desperate to me to be cool and validate yourself, then you go through you reach pretty far to make it work. Because what else do I have? What else is there?
At some point too, you eventually, like all good photographers, if you're improving from each time, you just see as incremental improvements on that to the point where you're a fine arts photographer. I don't know of any other concert photographers who had that label associated with them. When did that become like something that kind of attached with you? The fact it's like, oh, this is more than just like a snapshot. Like this can be its own piece of art by itself.
It's probably just my ego, man. No, I'm just kidding.
Is this self-labeled as a fine artist?
Yeah, I mean, I did make it up. I mean, that's the reality of it. But I was trying to think like, what makes me or sets me apart from everybody else? Like, why am I not, other than how you shoot, it's important what you call yourself because that's what you want to get hired for. And I specifically over the past few years kind of stepped away from tour content and became more like my ideal situation is I get to go to a concert and just create one photograph that I love. And, in order to create that kind of brand, it involved like a lot of my clients I just couldn't work with anymore. And then some people that I worked with, we adjusted how I worked. So when I shoot for like K-Rock, I just have a different understanding with them. They know I'm not the guy who's going to get like 10 good shots from every artist. They're just like waiting for those few shots that they can use. So I just create a small gallery for them. And it was nice to kind of work towards being, that's what I want to be. I want to make one really good photograph every concert if I can. One is good. That's like high. Then you're like,
get one banger image and that's all that matters.
I mean, because everybody not forgets, but like they look at them and then they're done. It's like, hey, this concert happened. If that's all the image says is, hey, this concert happened, I don't think I want to be creating it. I want an image that's created and then people see it and go, whoa, I want to be at that concert, or I feel like I'm there, or I was there and look at this insane moment that happened. Look at this, that I didn't even know happened with the way this photographer saw it. That's kind of my goal. And I want it. So trying to push it as much as I can.
I think you're doing pretty good with that.
Thanks, man.
So kind of going back to you doing the fine arts photos and just trying to get one solid shot. I can't imagine a lot of photographers can get away with that these days, especially in like the DJ world where it's just a nonstop flood of content, right? Could your style exist today for someone who wants to be kind of doing what you're doing, which is more of a fine arts approach to it?
I mean, I don't know how well it even works for me sometimes, but I mean, if you want to shoot content, go into or shoot content. If you don't, then don't. Like, my idea is that I want somebody to hire me for a book if they want to make a book, or I want them to hire me if they need like a shot to promote their tour, or if they're doing rehearsals and they just want some good images for there. So like, that's my dream, is like, it's just a little bit more, lets me balance my life, right? Touring is pretty extreme. You don't really have much time for other things, as we've talked about on this. So it just doesn't really work for me currently in my life. And maybe in the future in my life, it will work. But right now it just doesn't.
Do you feel like so much of like when I was, really beginning, not like barely getting any shows, I thought social media following was so critical to like getting on these tours. Does that play a role in it anymore? Or is it just being a good hang?
I mean, there's definitely some people who value that, but there's people who value all sorts of things. So that can help. It can be a component. But at the end of the day, if you are not a good person in real life, that kind of overshadows everything, right? The rest just doesn't matter. It's like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example. It's like, you could be the best person in the world, right? You could be good to your friends, good to your family. And if you're driving on the road and you're just not a good driver, none of that really matters, right? Because all that people measure your ability on the road is, are you a good driver or not? And on the road, it doesn't matter how many followers you have. It doesn't matter how healthy you are. None of that matters if you're not a good hang. So there's always this like main thing. It's like, okay, all these other things create a good person or a well-rounded person, but what's the thing that you just absolutely have to do in this position? And touring, I think the thing that goes across all types of touring is just, you have to be a good hang, because it enables everybody to do their job. If you aren't a good hang, you ruin people's job.
Yeah, don't be stepping on anyone's toes and, getting in anyone's way, because time probably matters on tour a lot, right?
Time matters in all forms of life. In all walks of life, time matters.
Hard transition.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So you started in the straight edge hardcore scene, and eventually you kind of worked your way up to like touring with like Diplo and shooting Coachella. And those are radically different, forms of photography. How is it shooting going from an emo set, with ADTR hard rock to like shooting a DJ? Was that a hard transition for you to like go into? It's like, oh, it's just a giant LED screen and this one guy compared to a full band.
Yeah, I mean, my first time I shot like a big DJ event was actually for Tiesto. He was the first DJ I'd ever really seen. And I did Coachella main stage with him in like 2011. And the photos are disgusting. They are so bad. I had no idea what I was doing. And I had no idea how to be a good hang on that level. I was so uncomfortable. And I actually looked back, and I remember going to Coachella, and like, I didn't have much money, at least. And I'm not saying that now I have a lot of money or anything, but I didn't have enough money to even fix my gear. So I had like a flash with me that was broken and like duct taped on the top of my camera. I had really long hair. I had really bad acne, and my clothes were kind of, I would consider, mismatched. I just looked like a touring lifer, right? And here I am, I had to blend into Coachella, which is like not only a music event, but it's kind of a fashion event, and it's kind of an exclusive thing. And I'm with an artist who, is considered a celebrity in most worlds and hangs out with other celebrities, and I'm meeting celebrities, and I myself do not look the part. So I didn't get fired from that job, but I never got rehired, which is kind of the same thing. And so that was a big learning experience for me. And I remember having those first moments on main stage, and yeah, it was way crazy because I'm used to being able to get close to an artist, use my flash and just take a picture, and they don't really care what. And this one, I have to like think about the shot before I go there. And that was crazy. And I have to, get over the anxiety of all these people. And there's just a lot of components that play into taking the photo that you don't even realize. Like the taking the photo is the easy part, at least in my opinion. So yeah, going from, you used a lot of different words to describe it. You said hardcore, you said, straight edge, emo, you said all these things. But yeah, basically going from a setting where the artist is a lot younger in their career and the fans are pretty young to a more mature audience. And artist who's been doing it for 20 years is definitely a big change, because, when you're working on somebody on a personal level, you have to kind of be able to hang. And I was not able to hang, and that can mean all different things, right? It can mean,
Mhm.
well, what are you wearing? And what are you doing? How do you look? And I just couldn't hang on Tiesto's level at that point. I don't know if I still could.
You didn't fit in at the time. It's a wild world.
At least I felt that way. Maybe I fit in and I didn't even know it.
A question: how many of your photos were silhouette shots because of the LED screens?
Well, I was on stage, right? So I didn't shoot from the bottom. So not a lot. And not a lot of my shots were in focus. A lot of them were even not blurry. It was pretty bad.
It's every photographer's worst nightmare, getting off stage and just seeing most of your shots just being out of focus.
It was kind of the norm for me back then, to be honest. After looking back at my work, it was a lot of misses.
Hey man, you only need the one good shot, right?
Theoretically.
Did you tour with Diplo, or did you just do like a week with him?
So I met Diplo in 2014 in London, which is 7 years ago now. And it was 7 years after I started my career, but it still seems like it happened way more recent than that. But I met him. I went to a show. He was playing at Brixton Academy. My friend was working for him, and I hung out, and he was cool. And then my way of like kind of working with people is I like to become quote to try to be friends with them. So after that, I just tracked him, and every time I was close to him, I would hit up my friend and be like, "Hey, can I come to the show?" So after that, I went to a show in San Diego, and I had a drone at the time. I was like one of the early drone owners, and I was flying drones at concerts before everything became illegal. And I set up my drone outside this college show in San Diego, and I lifted my drone off, and then I ran inside with my pass and my controller and flew the drone in, and then flew it onto stage and landed it on stage with him, and then flew it off. And that was when Diplo was like, "We got to work together." And maybe to my own detriment, but his understanding was that I was kind of like a content guy. And this is like 2014. I was shooting video, but I never really liked video. I just did it for some content. And I also met up with him at another fest, Mysteryland. And I met up with him. I forget everything, but I kept running into him basically. Mm-hmm. And eventually he was like, and then I emailed him and I was like, "Hey, can I just come on the road with you whenever your guy's busy?" And he had a guy, so I didn't want to intrude. And then whenever his guy was busy, they would just hit me up and I would go take pictures. And eventually it didn't really work out too much because he does need like a person who does content. But I did get to go on a lot of cool trips with him. Never toured for longer than a week or two. Maybe 3 weeks was the top. But, we went to Pakistan. We went to Brazil a few times. We went to India, London. I went on vacation in Sri Lanka while I was working with him. I got to do some of the most insane like life things because I worked with him. And I'm very thankful for that. Of course, I'm bummed that I couldn't be his full-time guy. But again, like I said, like my goals aren't to be a content person. And that comes with having to not be able to do some gigs, right? There's different categories within being a photographer or videographer. And I just don't fall into that one. Sorry if that was long-winded.
Nah, dude. I'd love to hear it. Sounds like it's just go, go, go out there. And whether it be for the content, for just moving around and everything, it's kind of a different breed of photography than, maybe being on a bus or just doing like weekend warrior stuff. I mean, this sounds like it's like a lot.
It is a lot. You're right.
So you've done touring for several years then, between, being on a bus, being on planes, traveling like around the country and the world, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Now you actually are starting an agency with another incredible photographer, Thomas Falcone. I would just love to know like a little more. How'd you guys actually got together and form the idea to do this agency? Because I don't know, I'm lucky enough that I got to work with both of you guys. And I think it's such a cool concept where you guys are the middleman and the artists that you hire can just focus on, making art or content. That's so cool.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, yeah, to give you like the airplane pitch of it, it's basically an agency that people come to, managers, labels, and they say, "Hey, we need a creative for this job." And then we help them find that creative and then oversee the project. And the idea came from, the network that I had met and learned to love in the music photography world was there's just all these people who always need work. And the hardest part about working in this industry is that often your skills as a creative outperform your skills as a business person. And that's okay. But I'm sure everybody's experienced it in the touring world. It's like, hey, I can tune a guitar or I know how to do lights, but just how do I ask somebody to pay me? Or what do I do for what agreement do I need? Or how much is this photograph worth? And so we kind of take care of all of that. So the creative can just come in and do what they're good at, which is creating. And the idea actually originally started it as Elmakias Agency back in late 2019. And then Tom hit me up and was like, "Hey, I wanted to do this kind of thing too. We should work together." And so we talked for a few months, and I've known Thomas for a long time, like 10 years. So we're already friends, and we just decided if we could work together or not, if it made sense. And so, yeah, it's honestly been one of the easiest work relationships ever. We just work pretty hard, but we work pretty healthy as well. And I really enjoy that. So the cool part is we get to work with all these different people who, I want to help out. And that was always the goal, is to always help people out, whether it be through workshops or other things. So to have the agency as a formal way to do it is nice.
That's awesome, dude. And you help people get on tours. You help with like creative direction. Like, what does the agency hire for exactly?
Yeah, we help people get on tours. We have a long list of people, so we don't nearly get enough work to be able to put everybody on the road. It's just a job that is such high demand. But the more, once you're on a list, then we need somebody in that area. We go through the list, we hit people up, and we find people to do work. Yeah, we've had people on tours, shoot music videos, do lyric videos, editors, animators, it's whatever. I do word of mouth, still help people get on the road in other areas, but there's other official places for that. Mostly I'm focused on getting people through that are in the Discord and, kind of part of this podcast on the road. So that's the goal is, these people hit me up and try to do the best I can. We've got Carol Lynn in the Discord is like one of the most adamant to get on the road that hasn't, I think she might have been on the road already, but I just love, just seeing these people like hungry to get on the road is great. I love seeing that. I know I went on a tangent there, but I just got excited.
I think it's such an important thing that you guys have that, because like you said, it's not fun asking people for money. You're like, I did this, but now it's like, so can you pay me now?
And it's always hard to do for yourself. Like, even at this point in my career, I find it so hard to ask people, hey, can you pay me this amount? But as soon as I start working for somebody else and helping them out, for example, like we represent a photographer, and it's so much easier for me to go to the client and be like, we need this much money, because I'm not emotionally attached to it. It's very transactional for me. And it's so much easier to come into somebody else's business and be the business person than to be the business person for your own business. So I probably just need to create like an alter ego for myself and operate as that person in my own business.
What's the alter ego name?
My alter ego name is Mark, but I don't have it. Yeah, that's all I got.
It just sounds like, and there's another way of you extending to like, give back to the community in some way. You're like, hey, we can help you with all the business stuff. We just want you to focus on doing what you're good at then.
Dude, trying to make some money, make a business. It's a fun challenge. I remember reading like about entrepreneurs when I was, in my early 20s, or reading, Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Workweek or whatnot. And them saying like they're obsessed with just creating new ideas and trying new things out. And back then I was like, I just can't try new things out. I'm so far into my photography career. But looking back, I wasn't that far in as I thought I was. And I'm so happy that I've tried so many things out. And a lot of them, they aren't failures, but they haven't become my main purpose in life. And I did them for a period and we stopped. Like Twitch, it was really good. We learned a lot. We stopped. Or my in real life music photography workshops, learned a lot from that. Or anything that I've done, merch, whatever. I learned so much from it, and it all led to the next thing. Like, I don't think I'd be able to do this podcast if it wasn't for being a photographer. And I don't think I'd be a photographer and have the community if it wasn't for touring with the artists I did. So everything kind of snowballs.
It's like a lasagna, just layers.
It's like a lasagna, just layers. You heard it here first. Yes, Connor. You got it, Connor.
Were you always very entrepreneurially spirited? Or was that just something that kind of came along as you were touring more and like had to find ways to make money to, be out there?
I mean, thinking back, I could say like, yes, I wasn't always an entrepreneur, but I would just be like when I was doing it, I didn't feel that way. But looking back, I can pick out, 3 or 4 things I created each year and say, yeah, I was an entrepreneur. But I feel like I could make that a reality for anything I wanted to say I was. Just find 3 or 4 things. But, when I was a kid, I did sell stuff in high school. Sell stuff. It sounds like drugs. No, I used to like make necklaces and sell them. Or I would do, I forget what else, sell prints of photos or photo shoots. I would always find some kind of quote unquote hustle to get me to the next step, workshops, whatnot. So yeah, I like kind of coming up with ideas. It's a lot easier, in my opinion, to work for somebody who's already done. Like, it'd be a lot easier for me to work for an agency or shoot for an agency or do something like that. But it's definitely a path. But I always enjoyed the learning that comes across with hiring people and being able to kind of make the decisions that change the company. So I really enjoy that. And, sometimes it takes a longer time to get where you're going, or there's struggles or pros and cons to it. And I just enjoy it more. So I tend to stick to that path.
You seem to enjoy the process more than just kind of jumping on someone else's project.
I do enjoy the process. That's true.
What would you say to photographers who are trying to come up now that they need to just do more than just photography to get on the road? Because usually you have to do more than just that to get on a tour these days.
So I think the question you're trying to ask, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, is like, what is required if somebody is interested in touring and being the creative on the road?
Yeah, I think that's a better way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, kind of you were hinting at, I guess you would say is, is it more than photography? And I think, yeah, sometimes. But I think the principle here is, figure out what you want to do, enjoy the process, like you were saying, and then become very good at it. And if you're becoming a photographer and a videographer and a graphic designer just because that is what is required in the job, then that's fine. Do it. But I would advise to try to enjoy it too, right? Like there are different niches within the creative field. So don't be afraid to kind of, really specialize in one thing and do that. You really have to make it what you want. You're taking a job that, you're self-employed. You're taking a job that you can create on your own. Create something you enjoy. You might as well. And yeah, sometimes doing something like video and photo would make you more viable for other areas of work and could prove to be very beneficial. But you just do whatever you want.
I have a couple more questions if that's okay with you.
Yeah, don't worry.
I got a couple more and we can wrap this puppy up. I think I have a good way of wrapping it up. Hey man, they may be weird sayings, but that's how new sayings are made.
Yes. Hey, if you guys don't know, Connor's, one of the things he's worked on a lot is just articulating. And whether that be in typing or in talking, that is one of his, not weaknesses, but one of the things that we just have a long way to go on. And you've come so far and it's been amazing. And doing this interview is kind of like his, all right, we're moving up. So everybody, next time you see Connor, make sure you give him a high five because this is fucking cool. And you're doing great, by the way.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, thank you. It's cannot do it without you being patient.
Well, sometimes people joke about things because they feel uncomfortable. So if that's the case, which I don't know if it is, then
no,
do as you please. But if not, then do as you please.
I do laugh at myself. I choose to do that. Going into that, actually, laughing at yourself. From your blog post to, the workshops, the podcasts, Twitch streams, all that stuff, you're always just giving back, man. And I can only think of like maybe Todd O'Young. Is that how you say his last name?
The emphasis might be wrong. It's just Todd O'Young. But yeah, I think you got it.
You two are like the only people who are constantly giving out like free knowledge to everyone because it is a hard industry to get into. And like it helped me get to where I am with you. And I know a lot of people that I've met already through meeting up through the Patreon and Discord really appreciate it too. Were you always so readily to give back to the community?
Yeah, I mean, when I started, there was not anybody doing formal teaching in regards to touring, but that was like all touring. There wasn't that much literature on it in general. It was just a little bit, it's almost like a secret club. But I did have a few people. I had Tim Harmon, Joey Lawrence, and actually those were the two big people who really helped me out when I was starting. And Tim, those people kind of guided me. And yeah, I knew the feeling of not having anybody to look up to and anybody to learn from. So I just wanted to make sure that other people didn't have to deal with it. And I will say that when those people helped me out, it was so minimal what they did. And I'm not saying that to say I did it on my own. I'm saying that the impact of their giving me 1% of their time was monumental in my life, right? It was like, wow, what it signifies for somebody that you look up to give a little bit of their time to you, you just can't measure that until you've experienced it. So I thought, how cool that I can do something that's relatively easy or will become easy the more I do it. And then people will, be impactful. It'll help. And, I admit I have trouble staying caught up on my Instagram messages or my emails sometimes, but I try my best to always respond to everything. And there were times in my career where it became overwhelming to a unmanageable extent. Like I used to get a bunch of like fan mail when I was in like 2014, 13. And I say a bunch, but it's like boxes full. And my mom and I had like this routine we'd go through. I got these postcards. And on each one of them, what would happen was my mom would open all the letters and then I think she would write their name on it. And then I would read them and then I would write like something on it and then she would mail them. And we would do that. We would just like assembly line mail stuff back to people. And that was like when it became too much. And so I was like, all right, I have no time left. It's just like insane. But other than that, now it's like a lot more manageable, and it is really fun. And it's cool now because people are becoming professionals and working with people through the agency who like looked up to me or were involved, like you said, with the blogs. And now seeing it come full circle, I was like, this is sick, because you just don't imagine that when you're doing it. You're just like, oh, I mean, especially when I was younger, I'm like, oh, these people will eventually do this, but it's going to be years, and who knows if I'll even be doing this. And sure enough, it's cool now getting to work with everybody that's kind of done it. And I hope that other people give back as well, because we need it. And I think people do. I hope people do it for the right reasons.
Yeah, I mean, just give back what people give you, and it helps people underneath you. We always want the best for each other, right? At the end of the day, because it's hard.
Yeah. I know what you mean by underneath, but just other people working towards the same goal. I agree.
Yeah, dude. I think we're pretty much at the end. Before I ask like the last couple questions, thank you for doing this, dude. Not just this episode, for the podcast in whole.
Hell yeah. Thank you for doing it, Connor. I'm excited to hear your last questions, or if you think there's, any, let's do it. I appreciate you taking the time to interview. I know I didn't give you much prep time, but we'll be back to our regular scheduled routines next week.
This is more of a question I just want to know, being selfish, but when are you guys going to release another music photography magazine, your music photography magazine? I know you did the virtual gallery. Are you going to try to do anything like that again? The
sad reality of those is they were very profitable when, to a point where it was like a merch item when I did them on my own. But when they became, even though it seems counterintuitive, when they included 50 different photographers, like they were more of like, I was more doing it out of pocket to help the people that were in it.
Gotcha.
And it was a fun project, so I liked that. But as far as like, the amount of time and money that goes into it, and then, I do it all on my own. I shipped everything, did whatever. And, didn't make any money. It just lost money, which is fine. It's a fun project. But because of that, I think I need to find a better way to do it or market it or something like that. But I do think it's a good project, and it would be cool to do another one. I think I might have gotten rid of the URLs. We'll see. But it would be cool to do another one to bring everybody together again. I do enjoy that aspect of it, even if it's just digital.
The digital gallery was really cool, especially during COVID, how you and Thomas set that up. Yeah, that was a lot of fun, especially with the audio. You guys had each artist or photographer describe their photo, right? Yeah.
Maybe we need to do like a first 3 like 2021 music photography roundup and get like all the best music photographs.
2 more questions. One being, when are we going to get more merch that has Mark's face on it?
I have leftover Mark merch. If anybody ever wants it, just join the Patreon, because I throw it in the gift bag you get when you sign up.
Yes. Last question. I already know what it is, but I have to ask, shower shoes or no shower shoes?
I do not wear shower shoes. I never really have. I have showered incorrectly at venues though, and I learned the hard way. So one thing I will say that I didn't realize is when you go to a venue, they usually have a chair in the shower room, and that chair is to put your clothes on. Like, it's not in the shower, it's right outside the shower. And I didn't realize this. I don't know why, but I was pretty lackluster with wasn't very focused when I toured. So I'd go in the shower room, take my clothes off, throw them on the floor, take a shower. I was just a dirty person. And then one time, the shower flooded, and all my clothes, I came out of the shower, they were just drenching wet. And if you tour like me, which you shouldn't, but I did because I'm me, I didn't have any clothes other than that. So I just had to put on my dirty clothes, and, I'd try to, and wet clothes, and maybe went to the merch booth and grabbed a shirt or something, but man, I got rocked. So put your clothes, put your shoes on the chair that's in there. Don't make mistakes like me.
Don't do never mind. I'm going to butcher that. I don't know.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yes.
Yes. Do as I say, not as I do. Well, this is also do as I do now, but yeah, that's the saying. I love how you started saying it though, and you're like, fuck. What is it?
I was like, I think I got this. No, never mind. I want to retreat.
Got it. It's coming out of my mouth. Damn it. It didn't come out of my mouth. All right. Too late.
Awesome. Hey, dude. That's it. Thank you again.
Thank you, man. Thanks for interviewing me, Connor. And thanks for everybody for listening. We'll be back next week with our wonderful guests. And I think hopefully we'll be starting to do in real life soon. We're just working on the gear setup. So if you have any gear setup suggestions, Connor is doing the research. And other than that, we'll be doing it on a couch in LA soon.